BABURAO Painter is the pioneer who introduced motion pictures as an art form in India. And on the occasion of his birth centenary, Bombay Doordarshan presents vignettes from his life and work. Great men in India, born in the 19th century, dreamt of a brave new world to be evolved with the dawn of the 20th century, and toiled ceaselessly towards scientific progress, artistic emancipation, and industrialization. One such man was BABURAO Painter. BABURAO Mistri was born into a family of artisans and craftsmen at Kolhapur on the 3rd of June 1890. He became one of the earliest pioneers of Indian cinema, taking to the celluloid medium at about the same time that Dadasaheb Phalke was producing his first film at Nashik. BABURAO was a versatile genius whose vision ranged from cinema, fine art, architecture, photography to engineering. Leaving school at the primary stage, BABURAO was introduced into the fundamentals of ivory carving and carpentry, the family professions, by his father, Krishna Rao Mistri. He quickly gained proficiency in these crafts, and his restless mind attracted him to other fields. He picked up the paintbrush and canvas from his cousin Anand Rao Painter, an accomplished artist. It was about this time that BABURAO Mistri came to be more popularly known as BABURAO Painter. Keshav Rao Bhosle was a school friend of Anand Rao and BABURAO, and an admirer of their skill. It was at his invitation that they came to Bombay to paint backdrops for his drama company, Lalit Kaladarsh. BABURAO's father, Krishna Rao, had opened a photographic studio at Madhav Bagh, and the cousins divided their time between the theatre and the studio. The backdrops that he painted for Lalit Kaladarsh and Gandharva Natak Mandale brought forth prolonged applause from the audience as soon as the curtain rose. Such force in BABURAO's brush that he could steal the thunder from great actors like Bal Gandharva. And what gave his work the stamp of reality was the amazing three-dimensional effects that he could create. Celluloid. He filmed the play Sahyadri Marathi with Bal Gandharva in the title role. Having made his mark as the country's foremost backdrop painter, BABURAO turned his attention to fine art, and his paintings etched a permanent place for him in the cultural sphere. BABURAO followed the practice In this painting of Datta that Baburao has depicted a young sannyasi and done away with the image of Datta in middle age. The 4 additional hands and 3rd head of the deity have been cleverly merged into the background. In this painting of Lakshmi, he does away with most of her finery to paint her relaxing on a lush lotus, which creates a mood of affluence. These paintings of Baburao were so much in demand that there was hardly a household in Maharashtra where prints were not hung on the wall. Baburao's portraits were distinctive, as this painting of the Maharaja of Kolhapur riding his favorite steed Shano shows. The Maharaja commissioned Baburao to paint a life-size portrait and wanted a perfect likeness of the horse. The first problem was to procure a canvas of the required dimension, 10 feet by 12 feet, not available anywhere in India, and the Maharaja imported such a canvas from Europe at Baburao's request. When the Maharaja could not spare time to pose, Baburao accompanied him to the Kolhapur racecourse to take a series of photographs which would act as the model. Baburao put his mechanical brain to work to invent a mobile easel that would provide him with the facility to paint comfortably. He employed an intricate system of pulleys which enabled him to move the easel up and down and keep it steady at the required height. Many portraits may have been lost due to Baburao's refusal to attest his signature to his works, as he said his brush was his identity. Baburao's professional career reached its zenith when he took to making motion pictures. He developed an interest in the medium when he and Anand Rao would see films from the West in Bombay. But when they saw the first Indian feature film, Raja Harishchandra, they were disappointed. They could not reconcile themselves to Phalke having followed the tradition of the stage by casting men in women's roles. Anand Rao vowed that if they ever made a film, they would employ women to play their own roles. Movies having whetted their interest, the cousins began to think of their own film. The first priority was to import a camera, but there was no way they could raise the money required. Baburao decided he would build a movie camera himself. Anand Rao suddenly passed away in 1915, before the camera was complete. Baburao went ahead alone, keeping a beard that was to remind him to turn Anand Rao's dream into reality. And he maintained the beard till the end of his life as a personal memorial to his cousin. By 1917, the camera was ready. Baburao was lucky to have the backing of a well-known classical singer, Tanibai Kagalkar, who advanced him 10,000 rupees to start a studio at Kolhapur. And the Maharashtra Film Company came into being on the 1st of December 1918. Rather than plunge into feature film production, Baburao decided to experiment with his camera by making a documentary on the Congress session of 1918 held in Bombay. He rushed back to Kolhapur to develop and print the film, and was overjoyed to find that his camera had come of age. Baburao now had the technical equipment, and even though he had but basic knowledge of the medium, he plunged into feature production with Sahyadri, depending upon his artistic skill and mechanical acumen. This silent film had the distinction of having two actresses in leading roles, Anusuya Bai and Gulab Bai. Sahyadri was released at the Aryan Cinema at Pune, where it drew packed houses. Among those who came to see the film was Lokmanya Tilak. He was so moved by the film that he personally felicitated Baburao at a public function, presented him with a gold medal and called him Cinema Kesari. The success of Sahyadri provided Kolhapur with a permanent place in the history of Indian cinema. With title cards for the silent film in both Marathi and Hindi, Sahyadri was exhibited all over the country. Baburao's next two films were Surekha Haran, a mythological subject, and Simhagad, a historical. Baburao's brilliance was reflected in the aura that he would create for his mythological films, and his selection of Narayan Hari Apte's novel Simhagad was something of a departure and a surprise. Simhagad was the first silent film to unfold a chapter from India's history, and Baburao cleverly introduced parallels to the freedom struggle into the story. Shortly after Simhagad went into production, disaster overtook the studio when fire engulfed the entire premises. Invaluable negatives of Baburao's documentaries and silent feature films were destroyed, and only the Bell and Howell camera, which had just been imported, escaped damage. Thanks to the generosity of Sardar Shankar Rao Nesrikar, funds were made available for the studio to be restored and for the shooting of Simhagad to be resumed. Having already shifted, with success, from mythology to history, Baburao decided to handle a socially relevant story. Saukari Pash is credited to be the first Indian realistic film, telling the tragic story of Indian peasantry, eternally burdened by the moneylenders' greed. Sadly enough, no print of the film is in existence. The film ended on a note of despair, but when Baburao remade Saukari Pash as a talkie, he changed the end to offer a message of hope. This was probably as a concession to the changing scene in rural India by the 1930s. Critics hailed Saukari Pash, and editor Natarajan of the Social Reformer editorially pleaded for more films in the same genre to aid the battle against ignorance. Other critics compared Baburao with the great American director D.W. Griffith. Baburao made 17 films in the 20s for the Maharashtra Film Company. Kalyan Khajina and Sati Padmini were entered at the British Empire exhibition at Wembley, the former bagging a bronze medal and the latter a certificate of merit. Baburao's greatest contribution to Marathi cinema was his ability to discover and train new talent. Over 500 young men emerged from his school to become directors, editors, art directors, cameramen, screenplay writers, and actors. This glittering array includes V. Shantaram, Fatehlal, Damle, Dhaibar, the foursome which floated the Prabhat Film Company at Pune. In fact, his contributions mark him out as a one-man film university. Leaving the Maharashtra Film Company, Baburao turned his attention to his first love, sculpture. In the creation of a magnificent bronze statue of Shivaji, he would not depend upon a foundry. He set up his own and lovingly poured the metal into the die with his own hands. The last major bronze work created by Baburao stands in all its glory at Kolhapur, a 12-foot-high statue of Mahatma Gandhi. After distancing himself from movies for 4 years, Baburao responded to a summons from Akka Sahib Maharaj of Kolhapur to direct films for Shalini Cinetone, which the ruler had established. In 1934, he made 3 talkie films in quick succession: Usha, प्रतिभा.
खाल्लेल्या अन्नाला कुत्र सुद्धा जागतं, पण तुम्ही मात्र आपल्या उपकारकर्त्यावर उलटला.
नीच हेतूने केलेल्या उपकाराची कवडी किंमत होत असते, समजला?
अजून इतका पीळ. प्रतिभे, सतीत्वाचा टेंबा मिरवू नकोस. यावेळी माझी इच्छा तडीला देणं कठीण आहे असं तुला वाटतं?
माणुसकीला कलंक लावणाऱ्या कुलांगरा आहेसच तू तितका नीच, पण जिवंत प्रतिभा तुझ्या हाती केव्हाही लागणार नाही.
पण यावेळी तू माझ्या हाती सापडली आहेस आणि तुझ्या सौंदर्याचा आस्वाद.
कवीश्वर,
युवराजनी, मी
चुप, एक शब्द सुद्धा उच्चारू नकोस.
And a remake of Savkari Pash. The films won critical acclaim for the set designs and Baburao's sensitive shot compositions. In particular, his massive set of the Himalayas for Usha won fulsome praise. Savkari Pash was noted for its stark realism by the critics, but none of these films were successful. Baburao made 7 talkies, but it was obvious that he was uncomfortable with sound. His only success was Ram Joshi, which he directed for V. Shantaram. This man of many parts was loved for his humility and humanity. Baburao was an affectionate family man and a generous human being. He passed away 36 years ago, and upon his birth centenary, we celebrate the continuity of his art, which he has passed on to the generations to follow. The art of Baburao continues, making him immortal.